pay attention to our character's actions and ask, why is he doing that, or why are they doing that? So that we can determine how actions are changing and the plot is being driven. And then you're going to know you have it today because you will have noticed characters' actions in your own book and how they contribute to the plot or the changes in the story. All right, guys, so all that means is we're going to pay attention to what our character Rob does. We're going to be asking ourselves, why is he doing that? And because he's doing these things, Jessica, how might that change our story? Is Rob going to continue to fit this pattern of do nothing? Or are things going to begin to change for Rob and begin to change for our a little bit about the true story of the Three Little Pigs? Put a thumb on your chest if you've heard this before. All right, it looks like most of you have, but real quick, let's just review the characters, the plot, and setting, because we know we're digging deeper into those. So I know that I have Wolf here. And in the beginning of the story, Wolf seems like he's just this fancy, nice gentleman who really doesn't want to harm anybody. He says, I just wanted a cup of sugar for my poor, dear, sick old granny. He's gonna bake her cake. So he goes to the first pig's house, and if you know the real story, he wants something, even though he says he's just going for a cup of sugar. He huffs, he puffs, he blows that house down, he gets what he wants. So we get to our third piggy. Problem for our piggy, right? Or the pattern begins to change. He huffs, he puffs, he tries to blow the house down, but it doesn't blow down. So he huffs, he puffs, he tries to blow the house down, but it still doesn't blow down DeAndre because it's made of brick. So right here, we begin to see our story change. And I know that because of that, my character also changes. He seems to have been this nice fellow. Well, it was just fair, so I ate it. And instead of just being a nice fellow, he gets totally angry. He starts hooting, he starts hollering. It says right here, now I usually am a pretty calm fellow, right? Like we talked about at the beginning. But when somebody talks about my granny, right, the little pig said something about nasty about his granny. He said, I go a little crazy. So he's getting all crazy and he ends up having to go to jail because he did eat the other little piggies, okay? So in my story, I pay attention to my pattern, right? That contrast and contradiction, those things that my character is doing that make me ask that question, but he does it over and over again. Then I begin to notice things that change about my character, right? Well, that brick house is introduced. So today in Tiger Rising, it's going to be your job to help me out and figure out, does what Rob did, speaking up versus Steve, continue to happen in our story? And how might this continue to change things for Rob? How might this continue to change things for the plot of our story? All right, so I know we had just left off at chapter 6. And in chapter 6, Rob runs into Sistine. And Sistine's getting ready to get in a fight, right? So Sistine gets in the fight, and Rob's first reaction is to not help. So are we going to continue to see this pattern of do nothing, or is he going to begin to start speaking out more? Remember we talked about how we might think that he's gained more confidence? Right. So is he going to continue to be confident or not? So so now I want you guys to take a second and think about what Rob just did. Put a thumb on your finger. Think about what Rob and Sistine, think about those actions that just happened. Think about those thoughts, those words. Does that fit our pattern? Just show me a thumb up or a thumb down. Fit our pattern, doesn't fit our pattern for Rob. Okay, now, thinking about that, I want you guys to turn and talk about how might this change things in my story. Go ahead and I like how you're thinking because a couple of my kids in my other series said the same thing. So I'm wondering if maybe there's something coming up. Okay, we're going to read the next chapter. I want to change that song back here. Panther. All right. So I'm hearing some wonderful conversation, and I'm hearing some of the stuff connect that first period was saying that you guys are saying. So I love it because that means you guys are really digging deep into this book. You're not just, remember the pool, you're not just up there in that shallow end, you're diving deep, trying to hit the bottom. All right, so remember, today we are paying attention to our characters at the conversation. What did we notice about Rob's actions? What did we notice, Valeria?
That in the beginning,
Okay. Right. guys hear that? That's not the first time I've heard that word. Say that louder for me.
A crush.
Maybe he has a
Crush on Sistine.
and maybe he has a crush on Sistine. So we don't know that yet, okay? But we have some evidence that might support that. What is the first piece of evidence that might support that? He did what, DeAndre?
Saved her.
He saved her.
Stand up for her.
He stood up for her. But now, just because he stood up for her and did all that, doesn't really mean anything. Now she sits down next to him, and what is the first thing Rob does? He continues to talk. And not just about saving her. He's talking.
He never talks to anyone.
Right, he never talks to anyone, so maybe he has a crush. Okay, so going back to this, so how might this change things? That crush. Thinking about how might his crush on Sistine continue to help him to talk, to be confident. I love your thinking. And as we read, we're going to see if that confirms our thinking, right? Is this going to continue this way? Or something's going to change and we have to look at the text a different way. Okay, so today, when you go back to your seat, and every day, your job is to make sure that you're digging deep into your book, paying attention to those actions. What is our character doing? And why is he doing this? Which makes us ask, how might this change things? How might this change my story?